like the heart versus the head. That conversation just never stops. Like, even look at Mohamed Salah's situation. Is this one of those moments?
Just let him enjoy his final season and let him go.
Yeah, like I don't think so. I think Guardiola is capable of resurrecting a new project, and
I think
so I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think a rebuild is one that requires the exclusion of Guardiola, because there's no one who can do as much as he's done.
About for Meshe. Guys, come and see. Erasmus, when was the last time Erasmus wore Chelsea jersey on the Beer Parlor episode? Today he's wearing Chelsea jersey. What? Because one bad man is trying to do magic in Chelsea with his staff of bad men. They've taken them to third place. What jersey is that? What color is that? What season did you guys even know this?
Yeah, so this jersey doesn't have a lot of good memory, so I don't even like it that much. But like, this is how brave I'm feeling. This jersey is from, I think, 2 seasons ago or last season, where we were in crisis, if you remember. But what a different story!
It's not you were in crisis, bro. You are still in crisis. Crisis that your coach cannot even accept that you are worthy competitors in the EPL. He still says Arsenal, which is below him. Arsenal.
We are very pragmatic. We are very, very pragmatic people, right? Like,
pragmatic.
We are very honest and pragmatic, right?
So your honesty means that you guys are not doing well. You know you are not going.
I want to ask you a question. What does Opta, or what's the mathematical percentages for the chances for the different teams to win the league?
Have you ever believed in Opta?
I believe in it
when
now.
When it comes to Chelsea.
Opta gives us 6%. 6%. Like, there's no one who says they are going on title charge with 6%. Like, if you had, I mean, if you were to go on a journey and they said there's 6% chance of survival, would you say it will be a sensible decision to go on that journey?
It is indeed true. Chelsea fan mentality has changed. I thought you guys were the teams that backed themselves. Now what? You're underdogs. Come on.
We Chelsea has always been an underdog club.
Please.
We thrive on that resilience.
And Leicester City should say what? Chelsea has been an underdog. Then Leicester City should say what?
Oh, they are crawling. We are flying.
No, Leicester City story is the underdog story. They rose from underdog ashes to go and win the Premier League once in their lifetime. Chelsea, you people have been winning Premier League. You people have won Champions League. You people bully teams. Today you are claiming underdog. Hey, then Ipswich Town, they are held dog beneath the under.
Yes, and underdog we are on my way under ants, like your levels.
Terrible. Chelsea fans, terrible people. The main reason why you guys can back yourself and your title charge is because you don't trust your team.
No, it's not that.
Underdog and under the radar and whatnot. Man, if Jose Mourinho was the one leading this team, he walks in and says, "I'm the special one. We are going to beat them."
And that's exactly why he's not leading this team, because tell you what, this is a very young team, and this is a team that must be made not to feel the pressure.
Very first time Jose walked into Chelsea, that wasn't an experienced team.
Yeah, I mean, he still had like his core, like he still had his core of experienced players in there, like in addition to some of the young talents. Like, he didn't have to do it. Plus, like, let's be very honest, this is the truth. We are not in a title race. Like, if you've seen the way Liverpool is
going, humility. Hey,
it's a one-horse race. It's a one-horse race. So
is this simply Chelsea just trying to, knowing the downfall, the impending downfall, and how catastrophic the season could go, regardless of the good start? Because we are 11 games in or 12 games in.
No,
it's really not anything.
I actually think that, because in this case we are being cautious, right? When someone is being cautious, it's not because it's not because they think that the West is going to happen. It's just to prevent the West from happening.
No, it's to give you an excuse when the worst happens.
No,
It's
no,
not,
no,
it's
no.
not, it's not to present to
Look,
prevent the
when we
worst.
started the season, you sat here and said that we will not be back. Today, you
No,
want to
but
put
you
us in.
guys will not be back. You are not
Yes,
back. I don't consider this as back, but I expect you to back your team.
yes. No, no,
You
no,
should
no.
be backing your team. You sat here at the start of the season and said you
No,
guys will be back.
next time I will not
How
wear
can you
Chelsea
say,
jersey again.
how
I'm
can you
sorry.
say that you are
Let's
back, but
let's
but
move
you don't
on.
want to back your team? Which kind of back
Let's
is
move
that,
on.
man?
Let's move on. Next time I will not wear Chelsea jersey anymore. I'm sorry. It looks like that was my error.
This is not about error. Defend your team. You are proud of it. That's why you wore it. Maintain the pride. You guys want to be on both sides at the same time. You want to be part of those who claim the glory, but part of those who also heap excuses in case of failure. Stick to a lane. Don't
We
be
are very
Manchester
pragmatic
United.
people.
Don't be
It's not
Manchester
about
United. Don't
feelings.
start
It's not
doing
about
this.
feelings.
You guys are of a higher class at this point than United. Don't be using the same
No,
excuses
no,
in the same bracket as them. You are not trying. You are not trying.
no, no,
These
no, no.
excuses are for the likes of Newcastle and Spurs who don't win anything, who are trying to be on the safe side. Oh yeah, we are trying, but the title
Can
is
you
not for us.
look? How can you put Chelsea in a title race? Like it doesn't make any sense.
No,
Like it
I
doesn't
thought
make
you
any
you
sense.
you you were about to say how can I put Chelsea and Spurs in the same bracket? But today you are subtly accepting Chelsea and Spurs in this. Oh come on, Chelsea's done.
Of course,
What?
it's too ridiculous enough for me
What?
to respond. So,
No
of
no
course,
no
it
no
doesn't
no no.
mean we're at space level, but we are at a
The-
point in time within the project. We are at a point in time within the project where things are beginning to come together. I really think the Chelsea that we see now is the worst Chelsea we are probably going to see in the next 10 years. Like, if these guys
So back
spend a lot of
so
time
back it.
together.
That's all I'm saying. Back it. Why are you being cautious, Erasmus? I believe you. See, I believe everything you are saying. Back it. So that I'll be here at the end of the season to roast you properly. But now you are playing cautious. Regardless of how things go, I can't roast you. Like, what is that one to? Don't take all the Arsenal away. Own it. Oh, Gina Susom, own it and say that
We'll
we
be
we are
here.
we are fighting for
We'll
the
be here
title.
by the start of the
Securing
season. By
top
the
four.
start
In
of
fact,
next
top two. You are securing top two. Then you back yourself. Then you go on. Then I'll be here waiting. Now you are doing. Oh yeah, we are improving, but it can go south. Oh, but we are not there. You and who are not there yet. Think you are third on the table. Leave the underdog stories for Leicester and Ipswich Town to talk about it and Chelsea. I respected you guys so
We'll
much.
get there. We'll get there. Then we'll have the conversation.
Like,
I'll be the first to
hey,
let you.
United has more than Chelsea does. Such
I'll be the
disrespect.
first to let you know.
You be the first to do it.
Let you know when we are finally in the race.
This guy, Maresca will never admit that you guys are in the race. And that's why all the fans are falling in line. Maresca, he will never admit it. We such boring third place. Like Arsenal, if they're the ones in third place, even though we all know they won't win, they'll be then that we are chasing. Yes, we are in it. We've still not lost it. We are in it. Then they'll give their fans false hope. Then they'll break their hearts. Aha, that one we have something to talk about. Right now, Maresca has started quenching the story. So right now, you don't even have anything to talk about.
Yeah, that's why he's a smart coach. That's why
That,
he's a
that,
smart.
we never said we wanted smart coaches in the EPL. We want banter coaches. Ateta, Ten Hag. Those are the kind of coaches we want. We don't want any smart coaches. Anyway, guys, welcome to another episode of the Beer Parlor. He pissed me off with his Chelsea shirt. Like, at least own it. Oh, anyway. Today there are a few things that have happened aside Chelsea claiming to be in top three and still denying title race. Even Ten Hag crowd was bold enough to back title race when they were fourth and sit and the rest, and we are still in it.
So where
But
is he?
uh, recently I learned to pack his stuff in Manchester, so yeah, he's in the packing business. Charlie. But there are a few things that have happened in the world of football this week. Top of the list is just recently the announcement by Leicester City of the appointment of Ruud van Nistelrooy. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Manchester City's struggles as well. We'll do a bit of a touch on with Ruben Amorim's initial games. Let's see the reactions from there, and then finally we'll talk about A former Chelsea coach who the only difference between him and Ten Hag is that he speaks better English and has a beard and hair on his head. Graham Potter's podcast that he did and revealing some of the things that were happening behind the scenes as well. So let's start with Leicester City and Ruud van Nistelrooy. I think let me get your reactions first because when he was being put as interim coach for Manchester United, I was saying that it was basically an auditioning for him, and I felt he'll probably go out. You were saying because it was an auditioning, he'll probably play it safe. I think it's safe to say he did well in the end as interim manager for Manchester United. Leicester City sacked their head coach, and then they swooped in for him in a matter of days. So, did you think really that it was always going to happen that soon enough it was going to return into a permanent job in the Premier League?
No, I think no, I didn't, and perhaps I'm one of the very bad examples because uh, I think I maybe thought that he was going to, especially if he was going to get a job, maybe not in the EPL, given that his previous experience was in the Dutch league and it
Yeah,
was a very super short stint. And also by his decision to leave eventually. I know his decision to leave was you would think naturally is the club parting ways with him is because he's not good enough. But I think in this case, it was because they just thought this man is too good to be someone's assistant, and that tension was going to exist. And people felt the same way, even when Ten Hag was present. That this is someone who is good enough to is this someone who is good enough to manage the team, and should we be considering him for as the main manager of the team? So I think those conversations has elevated his brand a bit. I don't think without that stint he would be in the running for this appointment. So I didn't see this coming at all. Obviously, not to say he's not a good coach, but I didn't see this coming at all because people, when coaches are coming up, you hear about them. There's an excitedness about the way they play, but he doesn't seem to have a unique, special style per se. But that could be because maybe I just don't know too much
yeah,
about him. Yes, because and I wanted to add this point also
yeah,
because the sacking of Steve Cooper, even though we saw coming, is still seen as a bit premature. Also because Leicester is the only team out of those within the threat of relegation who
yeah,
is not like there's the only team that amongst the teams that were newly promoted who is not within the relegation zone, which means that they
yeah,
are doing comparatively better than their compatriots. So
yeah,
there's questions as to what then is the expectation uh, of a coach who just came with a promoted side and had to change a lot of players and is still facing a lot of injury. Like the squad has not also been revamped because they were like limited by some of the financial issues within the summer. So I think the move towards Ruud van Nistelrooy is looking more like them citing an opportunity or them seeing an opportunity to capitalize on a coach who maybe has some special ideas, but I'm not quite clear exactly what the special ideas are. Like I know some of his philosophy tends to push the wing backs up, like uh, press very well, things like that. But you hear about a lot of coaches who do these things anyway. So it wasn't like a Fabian Hesler of Brighton or
yeah.
like some Horners of like formerly of Stuttgart, who you'd say like they are coming up with some revolutionary tactics, but all the same, I think he's going to do well.
Yeah, I think with Ruud van Nistelrooy, really, his time at PSV was really really good in terms of the results that he got there. It was a really short stint, but I think he won two trophies. He brought them back to the top flight, and there were a lot of very good young talents now that made their way into the Premier League and other big leagues because of that experience that they had with him. So the likes
Mhm.
of Cody Gakpo, Gerard Brantwaite, I think there are a few more players within the Premier League, even Xavi Simons as well from
Uh,
PSV. So you look at some of these players and how they fared under him, and you look at the talent that Leicester City has with a lot of young players from the second tier league coming up into the top flight league and having to compete in there. It's also a matter of really whether or not the kind of coach that you have without dominance can push through the system, because maybe Steve Cooper is the coach where in a league that his team is superior, he has the ability to dominate that league and be fine because the challenge there is probably less. But here is a man, Van Nistelrooy, who was coming from a league prior to being at United, the Dutch league, where it was tough for PSV before he took over. He managed to make them competitive again. He looked at young players and then made them find a spark, made them become like global players that people were now attracted to. You look at that backdrop and you are like, it probably makes contextual sense why Leicester City would be looking at such a person, bringing him into the team at this point. And yeah, we probably say that maybe Steve Cooper is not doing bad because Leicester City just came from relegation. But if you look at the standard of Leicester City before going to relegation, Leicester City going to relegation was probably the shocker, not them
Mhm.
coming back from relegation. And so I don't think that spending one season in relegation made their standards drop to the
Mm.
expectations that they have of themselves. And that's why at the latter ends of last season, when they nearly lost out to coming back to the Premier League, it was such a huge deal because everybody was expecting them to just blaze through, and they were leading by a huge. I've forgotten the points, whether 14 points or
Nice.
7 points, and almost lost that lead just because at the latter end of the season they weren't really performing well. And so if you look at this pretext to the sacking of Steve Cooper, he doesn't assure me, if you're a Leicester City fan, of somebody who really would keep you through to the end. If he was in a league that his side was dominating and he still lost a massive gap in terms of the lead and almost made it like down to the wire situation, you'd obviously be scared if he's within the league now, even though he's not um, um, at the relegation zone. Then you're asking also, should they wait to get there before they react? I think probably it's much more better to react proactively before you get there. So at least the new manager is also not under ridiculous pressure to get them out of that relegation zone. So yeah, I generally don't think it's ideal for managers to be sacked mid-season and bring new managers in. But also, if you are looking at Leicester City's context, and maybe the ultimate goal would be not to go back into relegation, then probably this is the best time to make sure that you provide a manager who doesn't come right into that hot soup and have to deal with it, but come and has some amount of time to set the tempo right and then build upon the team. I think for me, it's a really nice challenge for Van Nistelrooy, because when he managed United during the interim spell,
Mhm.
it was so quick, but also I don't know. It was a blend of newness and stability at the same time, which is so difficult to do for a lot of new managers. Like,
Yeah.
Amorim, for instance, came in, says, I want to play the way I want to play. And it's good sometimes because you want to make them make the mistakes quickly and adapt to it. But then in his interim stint, he also saw it as the club was really in a bad place, and the main thing he needs is to get some good results in. And if you ask me, I think the reason why Amorim, for instance, can take the risks he takes now is because of some of the results that Van Nistelrooy got in the interim spell, where he
Mm.
won the Europa League again, he won his games in the EPL, at least didn't lose, and then he brought them back to some amount of stability. And so, if you are drawing, it doesn't look like too bad. But if you're off the back of losing 4 or 5 games in a row and you come and draw, the stories and the noise around the club is probably even worse. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a tough challenge for him. I look forward to seeing how he's going to manage it. But for most of the time, he's a
Yeah.
PRM manager.
I think the only thing I'd say is that, like, because from what you're saying, it does look like he's one of the coaches who has his own philosophies, ideas,
Yeah.
quite inventive and youthful. There's a question of if this is what Leicester needs now. Like,
Yeah.
I on one hand, their league position is not too bad for them to take that kind of gamble, but it also does look like it's that kind of project that requires a lot of investment. So he must be either assured of the squad or think the squad is good enough to make it at least throughout this season and qualify for next season in order for him to have the window to now build his own project. Or I think really that's it. That's it. Because the other side is that you bring in a manager who is exciting, wants to play some kind of football, but he doesn't have the players and the tools to do so, and because of that, you risk relegation, you risk even sacking him before the season itself is over, and then your project dies. So I think it's a high gamble which they've taken, because when Steve Cooper came in, he also said these players are not the kind of players that can play like consistently day in day out in the Premier League. So players like Fatau Isauko, Mavididi, who were like,
Yeah,
they were the Leicester's best players because they were the wingers who were scoring a lot of goals under Maresca, didn't find game time under Steve Cooper. He signed like
yeah,
players like Ayew, who you'd say is nearing the end of his career, like prioritizing a lot of experience, and he had to remake the squad. So it
yeah.
almost felt like it was never his kind of squad. So maybe there's room for Ruud van Nistelrooy to sort of like come in there and be have that balance of pragmatic and excitedness and get them to the season for them to build their project.
Yeah, and I think if you ask me right from the start, moving from Maresca to Steve Cooper, anybody will tell you that you are not continuing a project.
No,
You are
no.
probably putting in a
With
stop.
all respect to Steve Cooper, no,
You
you're
are
not.
probably putting in a stopgap measure, right, to try and
Yeah,
buy yourself some time to find the ideal coach. And so
yeah.
again, it doesn't. For me, if you sit back and really play back events, I don't think it will look too surprising, right, to why Steve Cooper has been let go. It's similar to Chelsea and
Pochettino, yeah.
Pochettino situation, where you see this person, the project you want to do, you ultimately do not have the time to find the right person. You appoint someone as a stopgap measure while they stabilize things. Maybe things don't get too worse, things don't get better, and then you
Mm,
find the appropriate profile. And I think it was just a matter of time, because if you look at the coaches that were being looked at within that
mm,
scenario, they were all somehow innovative young managers who are touted to have some bright ideas. And for me, probably also, I think just by having Ruud van Nistelrooy there, everybody's going to be paying attention to Leicester City now,
yeah,
because his history in the Premier League, the aura around him, and PR and Manchester United, the way they blew his personality out of proportion when he had that
yeah.
interim stint at United, everyone is going to be paying attention now.
You know what I said it would be funny if
Yeah,
Ruud van Nistelrooy finishes over Amorim by the end of the summer.
scenes when Leicester City finish above Manchester United. Because if you ask me, maybe I get the philosophy around bringing in Amorim, but I don't think with what Amorim had done at Porto, if Ruud van Nistelrooy had sat at PSV and continued, they wouldn't be put on the same pedestal, right? It's
Mm,
similar to the Ten Hag situation at Ajax, a young and
mm,
uprising manager dominating with a young team, and it's basically the underdog story within these smaller leagues which have come up to dominate the league for a while. And
mm,
it's similar to Anslot with his team coming up in the Dutch league to dominate the league for a while.
yeah,
And so all these managers that are coming up have similar stories around their backgrounds as to what creates inspiration for big teams to go and look for them. But in the end, probably this is also, I think, the better auditioning for him for bigger clubs. If he
yeah.
botches this one, he's probably never going near a top flight job
Yeah, I
again.
mean, like if you handle Leicester, like Leicester, like you said, has ambitions to be among the top clubs
Yeah,
in the Premier League and also in Europe. So Leicester is a club that if you invest and you play well, you can be achieving top six in a
yeah,
couple of years. Like they can launch a top six project and they've done it before. Like Leicester was traditionally spoken of in the top six consistently
yeah.
after they won their
And I
league.
think
So
even with how competitive the league is now, if there is a team that is just comfortable in the mid table and
mm,
not bothered by relegation,
like
that
Marco
team is,
Silva at Fulham. Yeah, like
yeah,
Marco Silva at
exactly.
Fulham. Yeah. Cool.
So
Is it a good segue to talk about Amorim?
very, very good one to talk about Amorim. I don't His first press conference after the first game with Ipswich Town, he, to be very honest, sounded a lot more like an excuse drum. I know
Mm,
the sentiment, this specific sentiment has changed after their Europa League game at home. probably because they won. So a lot of people are not dissecting into what went wrong in that game. But they could have easily as well lost that game 2-1 because they just flipped sides after taking the lead in 56 seconds, then to going behind 2-1, right? But basically, what I heard more of was how the players, or all the difficulties that the players are undergoing in terms of adapting to his style. I think it is good messaging for the fans, right? But in some sense, it's similar to the Chelsea thing you guys are doing. It sounds like a pretext to pre-planned response in case things don't go well. About, yeah, the fitness of the players. He has to end games without center backs. Yeah, the players are not used. Diego Dallo is used to playing the ball to center backs and moving into the midfield, and he needs to stay out wide. The players are scared and they are thinking too much. Perfect. But you knew that was what you were signing up for. That's my
Mhm.
thing. You knew that was what you were signing up for. So this shouldn't be shocking you. I don't think his expectation was he walks in there, has a 1 week session with a lot of these players on international duty, comes back, and all of a sudden they are implementing it like his
I don't think
bottom.
it is his expectation. I think like it is managing the expectation of the fans of Manchester United. Like in as much as you think their current situations sort of like would make them a bit more humble, they they are also very, very, very much expectant of change. I think if you look at Eric Ten Hag's reign, within after the first year, everyone was like, "Yes, this is the guy to do the job." It was midway into his second year that the noise started. So and that's why I felt like it's been so. It's why has it taken so long to sack him? This man had 2 seasons and a half, not even half, 2 seasons and 10 games in total, and it still felt like it was such a long time. And you also need to subtract him having a full good season, which means that this man had just one bad season, and then they were ready to part ways with him. And I do admit that the Ten Hag situation was quite bad, right? Some of the results they were having were very, very, very shocking. But if you consider the history of the club, you would think people would lower their expectations. They
See,
don't. So I think he says those things to take a very honest account of the situation. And I think it's something that he's consistently done within his career. Like if you listen to the way he spoke when he was at Sporting, he's always been upfront and honest about what the problem is, what they can do to help. Like there are times where he's threatened that he's going to resign if he doesn't find a solution to this. Like when he came to Sporting, at first they lost their first 4 games or so, and he said if they lose the fifth one, he will resign. And because he backs himself. So I think that there are a lot of things wrong with Manchester United. People shouldn't expect that they would come through, but at the same time, you also can't lose. It's like we understand that you can't win all the games, but at the same time, we also don't want to lose, and that's why even when they are drawing with Ipswich 1-1, there's still like a lot of noise around the club. So I think that has been a
there's
struggle.
there's a point where you start to overdo it, right? And I think the line to doing it reasonably and overdoing it is a very tough line to see.
Mm.
And I'm starting to feel like he's overdoing it too early on, right? Because, for instance, let me give you an example with Maresca. Maresca will be very honest and talk about all the negatives and all that. But he will still talk about the positives. He will still talk about the things that were good enough, the things that he saw improve, and all that. From Amorim's assessment, and for me, this was where the gap was. It sounded like he was shocked by what he was seeing. Do you get it? It's not like he was assessing it as, oh, we expected this to happen and it's fine. We are in a process. We'll get there. It sounded like he was shocked by how long they were taking to make decisions. It sounded like he was shocked by Casemiro's confusion as to whether to press really high or to stay in space
And
so
I'm
that he
and I'm
would.
not surprised that he is. I'm not surprised that he is. Like I want to contrast like the appointment of Tuchel with the
Yeah,
appointment of Amorim. When Tuchel was engaged by Chelsea, we had just sacked Frank Lampard, and we were quite desperate. So he mentioned that even he the negotiations took was in a very very short period. So he
Yeah,
says that they were on a plane coming, and they right after the flying they had a session with the players because they needed to prepare for a game that weekend. So it was on the plane that they were taking stock and inventory of the players, and
yeah,
like because like you don't know if you coach PSG and you've just been appointed coach of Chelsea, you don't know anything about, like, you
yeah,
know the players and you know the general vibes, but you don't know anything about, because each player is not what you just see on the field. Like, you need to
yeah,
manage him in training and other things. So that was when he looked at the system and said, "Oh, I think a back three would suit us," because he mentioned that he wanted a blend of experience and also the youth, and he wanted to
yeah,
prioritize defensive stability because we were leaking goals at the back. So he wanted a formation that will keep us defensively solid whilst giving us chances to
yeah,
create attacking combinations up front. So that was his logic. So I
yeah,
think in the same way, if you look at Amorim's appointment, it was also in the same way where they sacked the coach and he was focused on sporting. And then the
yeah,
negotiations took just a very, very short time. And he did mention that he said, guys, wait, can I take this within the summer? Let me spend my time here, cool off
yeah.
about this. And they said, no, we need you to come in now. It's now or never. And he's also seen the opportunity because remember, he rejected
But
the
he understood what now or never meant, and he took it. So
Yes,
why is
so
he
so
surprised?
now that he's inside there, I think he's panicking a bit. But I also think he also identifies that this is Manchester
Said
United. You
he
don't
was a
get too
bit
many
anxious.
chances.
So he says that all the time. That he doesn't know what he'll get from the team on match day, so he's always a bit anxious on the
Yeah,
touch.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's because he's always worked with a bit of surety players that he himself scouts because he has quite an extensive team of people that he
Yeah,
works closely with. So he's flying blind in a way in the situation here. So even Mason Mount, sees comments on Mason Mount that this is a boy who got like his eyes shine bright through you because you can
yeah.
see that he wants it. And Lampard described Mason Mount also in the same way. So he's now going to take stock. He's now taking stock of the situation. And for me, that's the decision
But you know what
he had to
confuses
make.
me, Rasmus? Every single player that has been asked, Manchester United players that have been asked about Ruben Amorim, the consistent comments I've seen across board is that he's very clear in his communication. He's very clear in his instructions. For me, it's either the players have been lying or they are dumb. One of these two. Because how can someone be very clear in his communication and his instructions and you are confused about what he's expecting you to do on the pitch? Because if you look at the match against Ipswich, at some point on the touchline, he was directing Casemiro to push up, directing Johnny Evans to push up, directing Ericsson to push up. Literally, like you are playing PS and then you have to
Yeah, but
go
because he
settle.
had two training sessions, just two training sessions with them. So like this is the reason I perhaps understand this a bit better is also because of what Enzo Maresca said. Because when he was asked in his interview with Rio Ferdinand, he
Yeah,
said he said oh, they're already listening to what you say. Like they're already doing what you say, playing your football. So you must be very happy. He said, no, there's still a lot of things that they need to learn because they are instead in football, there are scenarios. So he might be very clear on the instruction in terms of moving forward and moving back. But there are
yeah,
certain scenarios where the logic of his philosophy expects you to act in a certain way.
yeah,
However, the player's instinct overtakes them because they are not very, very clear on those instances. So they take different decisions. So he says that it is imbibing the philosophy, and imbibing that philosophy means that interacting with it so many times, playing different games, and learning from those games before you now become, because it's like living with someone. They may tell you, hey, like I'm this kind of person. Maybe I snore at night, I do this, I do. And you're like, yeah, cool, chill. But then he starts snoring at night, and you're like, not this kind of snoring. You didn't no, you didn't tell me that you sounded like a bulldozer. Like, yeah, like I think I
this is
think
a terrible example. What is this?
I think that's it. It's like getting used to the situation itself
Yeah,
and creating like a lot of different scenarios where you now have to adapt. So they may be getting the clear instructions, which is informing some of the primary things which they need to do, the main things which they need to do. But there are lots of auxiliary things, and there's a lot of ways it affects different ways they should do things, which they will not
Yeah.
get until it takes time. To be honest, I just
I
have to
get
chip in
what,
that. Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but still, I think like he's really close to that line of like too much explanation or too much excuses or
Yes,
whatever.
yes,
And
that one they are.
and for me, I think it's too soon for it. So maybe it would get better with results. Hopefully for not hopefully, but because me, I'm here to roast. For hopefully for United fans, but let's see what happens. And I think um, he's also still yet to get back some really really good players that would help. For the life
Yeah,
of me, Shaw is fit. What news? Anyway, so we are trying to see how he sets up in his actual when he has the full team back, all of them to full fitness. I'm yet to see how he sets them up to see whether or not they'll be able to execute it properly for him. And there's one interesting thing that he said that for whoever doesn't play, they get to train. So
mm,
if because like football routines after a match they take a rest or go for light recovery sessions, and then they probably just have travel for a Europa League game or whatever, and then so they are barely training, probably just have one solid training on Mondays every week and all that. And so mainly what he says is that after a match day, for whoever doesn't play, they have a full session, a proper session on the day
mhm,
that players typically have a recovery session, just so that he can get they can get more time to cover the principles and to do trainings and to imbibe them. That means
yeah,
he will also prioritize rotating the squad as much as possible to give everyone that fair chance of that training experience, so he
yeah,
gets to at least have more time with them. And for me, I
yeah,
think that's a good approach in terms of trying to cover up. Already, I see one difference between him and Ten Hag. At least he's proposing solutions to the difficulties that he's coming with. Yeah, there are 10. We will say 10 problems and not provide one solution. So we shall see. It comes with the game. It happens when they are back fit. Charlie. Anyway, from one side of Manchester to the other, Pep Guardiola's troubles, his troubles are still on. The last time we spoke about it, we said, "Oh, Pep will find a solution." I still
mm,
think he will. I still think it's too soon to say he won't. I also still think maybe Rodri won't come back soon, but if he gets his proper centre backs back, he might be a lot more a lot more secure at the back. Currently, what's wrong with him is he's leaking too much goals.
mm.
And that's the problem. And if you look at their game with Feyenoord, it was like these guys were leading 3-0 to the 80 something or 75th minute or whatever.
Never seen
And
anything like
I've never seen it like that. Then Pep's team just capitulates. And you know the annoying part? For once, let me defend Manchester United teams. If this happened under Ten Hag or even Amorim or to a Manchester United team, the entire week will be dominated by Manchester United coverage of how terrible, how much character the team lacks, how they capitulated. They would analyze every single goal, every single scenario, every single cough that a player made on the pitch. Because it's Man City and Pep and the Qatari oil, the Saudi Arabian oil, see what's happening. Everybody is shush about it. He spoke about it a little bit, and the team is facing a difficult time. It's like a DB who is struggling to make an A in exam. Oh yeah, they will come back.
that. The question I have for you is that have they won four league titles in a row? So
United.
there's a lot of grace in the tank. There's a lot of grace in the tank. Like if you look at the problems that Manchester United are facing in any other club, Guardiola will be sacked. Like in any other club, like
I saw a post today. In all of Ten Hag's feelings, he
he
never lost
didn't
five
lose. No,
in a row.
no, in any other, if no, sorry, not in any other club. If this was any other coach, people would,
He
would have
was
been talking about English. Yeah, but the upside of what you get with Guardiola is just too much to let go. And I think the point at which unless he wants to go, and that's really sometimes some of the painful things about building legacies like this, because the kind of
You don't know
problems you,
when to let go.
yeah,
Yeah,
you don't know when to let go. Like clubs hold on too long. Clubs which succeed, I've realized that clubs which learn to let go,
if it were
and that's why.
you, if it were you, now look at how difficult it is for Alex Ferguson to let go. Even when he was going, every single player at United said it was a betrayal for him to
Yeah,
leave.
like, and for me, that's where the, because see, a club like Real Madrid, they are very successful because of that. They know when to
Yeah,
let go.
you know when to
Um,
let go. Mm.
Barca, there was a time where, like Messi, they really should have let him go. Like they held on for too long, and it caused these issues. And I think that's always the thing in football, like the heart versus the head. That
Yeah,
conversation just never stops. Like even look at Mohamed Salah's situation. Is this one of those moments?
just let him enjoy his final season and let him go.
Yeah, like
Because
I don't think so. I think Guardiola is capable of resurrecting a new project. And
yeah, I think
so
he
I don't
will.
think that, yeah, I don't think a rebuild is one that requires the exclusion of Guardiola, because there's no one who can do as much as he's done. But when you look at all of the symptoms of his team, it does look like it really does feel like the end of an
Yeah,
era. And I don't want to, yeah, overhype this, because they are good enough to still win a title or two,
yeah.
but I don't think they will be as
So Ten Hag
brilliant.
was right.
He, no, so I think when we speak about the end of an era, it's not like immediately
No,
you
no,
are
no. I'm
gone.
not saying because Ten Hag used those exact same words that eras come to an end. Klopp left when he was there. He's left, and Pep got. He never said he was
Yeah,
going to
so
end eras. He never, in his defense, he never
no, but
said he
of
was
course, like,
going to end
yeah,
eras.
he was, so
He
he
said
was right.
eras come to an end. So you are saying
Yes,
Ten Hag is right.
yeah, so he was right.
Someone
Yeah,
please crop this moment and share it with Ten Hag because I'm sure he'll be really happy. He needs a lot of joy in his life right now.
yeah. So like it does feel like, look, he's they are soft in the middle. They are very very soft in the middle. He doesn't have like the midfielders who hold the capability, and he's also pushing the team a bit. Like a team whose most of whose centre backs are out, he still continues to play a very very high line. Um, Still like keeping a lot of possession in the middle of the park, and whenever there's a counter, they don't have the physicality to like stop teams. There's no longer a lot of speed within the team. Lots of these players are much older. They are not inventive anymore. Like sometimes there's a sincere lack of desire among some of these players. So it leads you to question if this era is really over for him. But if you see some of the young players they have, like the Simpson Pussy, and the some of these guys like Oscar Bob who are yet to come back, who were keen to be introduced within the side, you can see that this is a city project that can outlive itself, because even within the pipeline, they have a lot of players who are playing within the elite development squad who are good enough to come back up. Like players like Makati, Liam Delap. Okay, I think Liam Delap has fully moved now, but they have a buyback clause, so they really can rebuild this project and get back to where they are. But the question is if this should still be Guardiola who is
I think
taking
in
charge.
context, look, City only have 13 outfield players fit. 13. They start with an 11.
Mm,
13 out. Let's say they start with 10, right? Because the goalkeeper makes it 11, which means they probably have just three. And if you look at the defenders, Nathan Ake, Ruben Diaz, Gavadio, Rico Lewis, John Stones, and Josh Wilson Esbrand, who is a new kid, and he's counted as part of the 13. Phil Foden, Gundogan, Kovacic, James McAtee, again, another new kid, Nunes, and then Bernardo Silva. And then the forward is just Erling Haaland. So you look at this list. We always said that City used to have a very solid brand of a very solid core of let's
yeah,
say 18 or 20. That way, if they have to make changes, there's always fresh legs. So I think it's a ripple that if you have players who are injured and you have fewer players, they also easily get worn out because of all the competitions that City are in. And
yeah.
eventually, that's why, for instance, it makes sense that against Feyenoord, they are capitulating in the latter minutes of the game because they lose out energy. These are the parts of the game where you bring on the likes of Doku to be running at defenses,
Yeah, Yeah.
or high up the pitch, right? So yeah, probably would see a different City in the end. I think they should have some January signings in mind to try and fix the midfield issues, and that would be
But
interesting
what
to
do you
see
think
how
of
they
their
do it.
game with Liverpool?
Yeah, that's another thing. I think Pep, the best place to sound the warning bell, right? That if you thought we were asleep, better go and wash your face upwards with warm water and put on a lens so that you can see properly what's happening on the table, is to lash Liverpool. And Pep
But we
likes
said
those
the same when they faced Tottenham, when they were going to face Tottenham. We said the same when they were going into their Champions League game.
really Tottenham. Ah, let's talk about
Against
Tottenham.
Tottenham, like really, because it was a boogie team. Pep had just signed a new contract.
Tottenham, really. Tottenham and Liverpool, Erasmus. Like you win, you Tottenham and Liverpool. Oh, for Man City. Ah, next conversation. Obviously, the better statement to win is against Liverpool. Like maybe Tottenham, there it is Chelsea. You are the ones who want to beat Tottenham, or Arsenal will be the ones who want to beat Tottenham. That's for Arteta and his winless streak to be
But
celebrating.
you're ignoring the history between those two clubs.
No, no, no. What I'm trying to say is that if we are talking about comparing the statement wins, that would the impact of the wins in terms of
So
statement when we are
are you saying that the narrative against Tottenham wasn't inspiring enough, so the one against Liverpool is what might push them to do something?
way more inspiring than Tottenham. Now, a trophyless cabinet. What are you winning against them for? These guys are the league leaders. They are the ones leading the table. In Manchester City's trouble, they are still above Tottenham. How are they the people to inspire you to come back from the dead? The people ahead of you, those are the people you need to be competing with. I don't even think if they play a game against Arsenal today, if I'm Pep, it will motivate me. People who are still below me in my time of struggle. Come on. So obviously, Liverpool's game is a big one. But like to be fair, Liverpool are scary right now. And
Very scary.
it's you know eh, the true test to Anslot would come when they get the big blow injuries. Because every team eventually gets theirs. Hopefully they don't. And he's adopting a strategic style of play that makes sure that he avoids the injuries. So he's
Yes.
playing less intense football. He's having
Mhm.
much more composure. He's not being the Klopp gang pressing, giddy giddy, just running around and risking much more injury. So it's like he's too smart to be in the Premier League right now and have Rodri injured. So if City were on their game, that would be the time where it would be really exciting. And I think as good as Anslot is, I still do not think that this should be the time where he feels he's come to the EPL and set a statement, right? He
Mm.
should be able to compete against other teams at their best. He should be able to compete against an Arsenal that didn't get red cards at the start of the season to capitulate in games. At least he should be able to compete against an Arsenal that has a coach that aspires to win the league beyond saying we are progressing. He should be able to compete against Pep Guardiola's team with Rodri and all fit centre backs from defense to midfield, playing John Stones as a double pivot and pushing people up. I think up until he faces that challenge, you see the way I didn't mention Chelsea because you guys say you're not in title race. Until he's able to face up those scenarios and come out of it, I don't think that he will still be comfortable. And even if he wins against City on Sunday, I really do not think that he would find it as a statement win, right? Like those wins that Klopp gets, and then he gets like, this is a statement win against Guardiola. I don't think after all the teams that have beaten final drew in latter stages,
No, I
if
think they'll still want to beat City because,
no, no,
like,
no,
this is
I get
the
that they
thing.
want to beat them. What I'm just saying is that I don't think Amstrad would pat himself on the back if he wins and think I've done a
I think he
great
would
job.
because what do you say about Real Madrid? They just beat Real Madrid without Vinicius Junior,
Ah,
without
that's my
Militao.
point. You cannot be celebrating such wins.
They did celebrate it a lot. They looked very, very because they'd
I
not
don't,
beaten
I
Liverpool in
don't think they
18.
are. Then I don't think they have ambitions to beat this kind of Real Madrid team and be jubilating. It's similar to Arsenal. Arsenal won
No,
some
but
weeks,
you
some
can't
games.
choose who to beat. You beat what's
No,
in front of you.
I agree, beat them, but they are not statement wins. That's all I'm saying. So it's like you are beating Ipswich. It's not a statement win. You are beating Leicester City. It's not a statement win. Don't beat a depleted Manchester City and think it's a statement win. Similar to Real Madrid. Real Madrid with Valverde playing at right back, without any proper center back aside Rudiger. How are you beating this team and claiming statement win?
Mhm.
Sometimes Liverpool fans, be serious and assess your opponents well.
You can't talk about them. They're on top of the table.
Massa, they should get
11,
out.
11 points
They are on
after
top
11
of this
points
table.
ahead after this weekend.
No, but I mean, let's see what happens. And I also think Pep Guardiola is going to put up a fight. And that's the thing. I think what happened at Feyenoord is a Pep team that was near to a point of return and couldn't take it over the line. That is
Mhm.
probably a much more dangerous sign than where they were before the Feyenoord game.
Yeah,
And so you
yeah,
look at it and think that, oh, they capitulated against Feyenoord. It's very fine margins. For instance, Edison made some really stupid decisions coming out for those two balls that ended up in the net. He probably wouldn't make those stupid decisions against Liverpool. And so you need to also still understand that this is a really dangerous team in context, and they are still likely to punish you even if things
they are the
are
champions. They are the
well.
champions.
Yeah, you
It's as
can't
simple
disrespect them that way. So
as yeah, they are the champions.
anyway, moving on from Pep, final thing is in the world of football recently, or let's say generally in the world of media, podcasting has become the place where everybody goes to cry out their hearts and seek some solace by being with friends and drinking some tea. And recently, we've seen another person sharing their stories, Graham Potter of Chelsea. He was mainly the one who kickstarted the new era at Chelsea, faced his own share of drama and tears, was kicked off. He still gets paid handsomely, but he's still pained and sad about how some of the things went. I listened to the full episode after he sent it to me, really, and I have some interesting assessments on his approach to things,
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
also
I
on
want to
how
hear.
I think he was too nice for the project. I don't think he was someone who. It's not that it's a bad personality. I just don't
Mhm.
think his personality suited the context within which he found himself in. Because in a state of chaos, what you needed was somebody who could command authority to get everyone moving. Because you cannot be everywhere at the same time. If you have a leadership style within that situation where everyone gets going at the sight of your presence, you'd struggle because then people would drop the ball a lot behind your back. And it looked like that is what it was for him. And that's why he felt overwhelmed, that he needed to be everywhere for everything to function. And in a situation like that, where he mentions he came from Brighton, where there are layers of structures before he gets to him. And all of a sudden, he's in a situation where it's him and owners, Zoom call in America somewhere, making almost every single decision. That's a tough one because essentially it's a description of a man who has to fill so many shoes at the same time, who has to oversee so many departments. And excuse me to say, he's too nice of a person in his approach to reaching that outcome. He cares a lot about people. Great. I think in certain contexts, when things are going really well and you have every structure in place, because you get to operate within a smaller sphere, you have that energy to dispense efficiently across every single person within your sphere. And that makes it efficient and effective. But if it broadens, you will drain and you will be tired. And we all do this. Like the reason why your friend circle is small and the number of people you can really talk to within a day, the number of people you can really say hi to, in addition to your work, is very limited. It's because you have a limit when it comes to emotional energy that you can dispense. And given that his unique capability was dispensing emotional energy to create unique connections and get people to do the work, he was always going to struggle within that context. If you put him in Chelsea now, I think his result would be different because he would have singular focus and be able to dispense that energy efficiently. In that context, I think he was always going to struggle. And I don't think it's a dent on his personality or his image. It's just a description of what conditions would best suit him as a manager and what conditions would elevate his unique attributes as a manager. But within that condition, clearly tells you Graham Potter is not somebody who rebuilds you from chaos.
Yeah, like we know that the great managers have great personality and they're able to inspire their teams in very, very different ways. It
Yeah,
it's part of the things that makes you that kind of manager who can manage a club like Chelsea. So I think when he speaks of his, he's no way like a soft manager. I don't think he's soft. I think within the business of football, you need to take tough decisions, and he's someone who was seen as capable of taking them. I think you are right to an extent that the environmental conditions we all know did limit him. My
yeah.
issue is that he was aware of some of these conditions and he was
When he
aware of
was
what he was walking into. And there were several instances within the interview where he seemed to be pushing out and giving blame to a lot of things around him. And like for example, things like the owner said this is what they want to do. So I was like, yeah, it's your decision. You should
yeah,
go with
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I advise that this, that. You are the one who are eventually taking, who would eventually bear the brunt of it. I think what killed it was the signings which were made in January. Like that was
yeah,
like the ridiculous decision I'd seen in like the world of football. I don't know how a manager like agrees to that because it just was quite clear that then you didn't know what you were doing,
yeah,
which like without being unfair to Potter was what it looked like in most of the situations. So it was a circumstance that he had never faced. And
yeah.
this is what gets me. We knew this. We knew this. We knew that the club was in a state where it needed
Just
some a steady
trying things
hands.
out.
So
Yeah,
yeah, so we're calling for people like Mourinho who already knew the club. Even someone like Lampard wasn't bad because he also recently came to speak about that interim situation and said it was just holding the baby whilst the project was getting kick-started.
yeah,
So I don't think they needed to sack Tuchel. It was quite clear that yeah they wanted to move fast and break things, but it was football and things you can't just like jam your way through things. And we've seen that
yeah,
over time things have settled quite more clearly now. And now we are saying that well Potter will thrive under these conditions. But the second thing is that I don't think his personality resonated a lot among Chelsea fans. Like we moved from Tuchel, who was saying that, well, if they don't give us a plane, we'll go by bus.
yeah,
Was willing to do everything he can. He was excited about the football, and and Tuchel was put in the same position Potter was put in, and
yeah,
he immediately told the owners, "Look, I can't sit down and always be answering your Zoom calls. I need to focus on the pitch." And they were like, "Well, we need a coach who'll be more collaborative, who would work with us to get what he wants." He's like, "Get what you want. Like mine is just to tell
to play
someone my
football.
like
Yeah,
because you don't speak football. Am I now coming to explain
yeah,
everything?" They were like, "Yeah, we are trying to put in." So it's the same situation that Tuchel was unhappy with, and it was quite clear that he had a discord with. So the
yeah,
Chelsea fans were right that they got in a yes man, someone who will not challenge anything, someone who will just go ahead, which is not what we needed. Because Enzo, one of the things that has been clear with that a termination of appointments by Poch and the appointment of Enzo Maresca is that there is a clear idea now what the sporting directors want, and there's a clear idea of what the coach wants. He says that
yeah,
I don't like this, I like this, I don't want to do this, I do this, I don't agree with this, I agree with that. So this is a coach who is making his opinions and ideas known, and that's what you
yeah,
need to manage a club. So I think it's one of the things he will take away would help him in terms of his experience. But I think it's only if he's able to process it in that way. But the last thing I just wanted to also highlight about it is that I don't like how he when he touched on the issue of mental health, he how like his tone. It sounded like someone who had regretted a lot, letting himself be vulnerable, and because of
yeah,
that, he's morphing into this kind of character that because he did address it himself that yeah, the Chelsea fans thought he was soft, he wasn't aggressive or loud enough, which was true because there was I remember this so clearly. Oh my god, I didn't like Potter. I remember this quite clearly. There was a game where I think it was either against Brighton or another team of that sort, and the players went up and they were fighting. There was a fight right in front of him, and he could see it. And he had just put his hands like this and his hands on his waist, and like looking at it, he looked like he didn't know what to do. He wasn't trying to break up the fight, stop his players from getting the yellow card. You could see that he didn't just connect to the squad. like they didn't know him. So
Yeah.
um I think a large part of what was happening, and his constant reminder of, oh yeah, we came from the second tier of Swedish football. Like it's like things that he says to himself to tell himself that he's doing well, to build his confidence. So I didn't like his comment about mental health when he was like, yeah, well, it makes you a bit vulnerable and people don't understand it and people misunderstand it and they use it to judge your capability, which I think is true in today's world. Like in today's workplace, you can't be open about your mental health challenges because
Yeah.
people are going to use that to undermine the work that you do and use that to cast doubt over your credibility. But I really don't think that's exactly what happened. I think a, a large part of it was him. So if
You know,
you pop
you
up
know
that
the
reason,
thing, the and the best way to describe it in my mind, in an imagery way, is Potter was typically doing the denial Ten Hag was doing, with much better like emotional appeal to it. Because Ten Hag
mm,
always had this serious face, and so it sounded even more ridiculous. But Potter's own was as ridiculous as Ten Hag
yeah,
was, because you'd see a very shambolic display of football. Yeah, the lads really tried today. They really did well. Like, how can you tell me you didn't see when you were on the touchline? Right?
Jesus
And that was
Christ.
the situation with a lot of people. And like, I've seen fans of today hate coaches who are in denial. They like much
Yeah,
more open and honest coaches. So if they come at you, you think maybe it's some unique attribute of yours. It's simply because you are not communicating the truth. People would blame Ten Hag a lot for not communicating well. There is no hard way of saying players didn't play well and that you need to do better and that this was bad and that you've not been able to establish an identity, and then you say no, we've had an identity since I came here. We see an
mm,
identity on the pitch, but clearly people don't see it. So it's not about the pivotal issues, the peripheral issues that people try to blame it on. Ten Hag didn't have a clear communication style. Oh, Potter was too nice. No, they were just being in denial, and fans clearly hated that pattern.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And hearing all these issues now tells me that he was lying within all those press conferences,
Yeah,
trying to make it
exactly.
look like, oh, we are fine. Like he was lying, and that's not how you run an organization. I think in today's world where like there's so much information and there's also so much misinformation, authenticity seems to be the new currency. Like if you
Yeah,
are more authentic, people connect with you a bit more. If you're a bit more frank with the situation, and I can understand that as a football manager, you want to keep the positive side of things. You want to be able to represent your team in the best way, but then also fans see a lot, and I don't think he delivered. He didn't connect to the fans. There was nothing. So I understand that the circumstances really really limited him. I don't think that was lost on anybody, but I think that was the question we're asking from the beginning. Does he have the capacity to handle that? And for me, he showed that he didn't.
yeah. And like, this is not in any way us undermining um Graham Potter's coaching capabilities. He was brilliant at Brighton. He had worked his way up to the top,
Oh, one of my
and
favorite
yeah,
coaches.
he had proven that he's really a good manager when it comes to young talent, making them excited about a project, keeping the belief, and just motivating them to be out there on the pitch for him. But he's also proven that he's not the coach. He's not the typical old school manager to take up everything on his back and be carrying it along. He needs to just be allowed to do a coaching job. And he's too nice to speak up when he's not being allowed to. And that's the difference between him and Thomas Tuchel. Tuchel is a similar type of coach. He just wants to be on the pitch. He just wants to be coaching. He doesn't want anything to do with your management meetings for long hours, whatever it is. And he spoke about it and he lost his job. But at least nobody sits here and cast an indictment on Tuchel's managerial image. At best, what you say is this is a clear coach who knows the conditions under which he works,
Yeah,
and if it's not there, he's going to walk out the door. And Potter just needed to do that for himself. But eventually, I also think sometimes it takes a painful lesson to learn how to navigate your way through the corporate world. To be fair, Graham Potter is not the first person to find himself in working conditions that hurt him, but he's not able to speak about it. There are lots
Yeah.
of people out there. This is no different scenario from the corporate world scenario every single day, where you are working in pain, but you are not able to speak up because you think I'm a people pleaser or I just don't want to complain,
Yeah.
and they ask you everything is fine. Sometimes in the corporate world, you need to be the stubborn one a little bit,
Yeah.
push back, test the waters, see how far they are willing to go to pin you to that painful experience. At least he should have tried that. But it seems like for the January transfer, for instance, he says, well, I said it wasn't a good idea, and they said that's what they want to do. And then I said, yeah, you are the owners. It's like, yeah, you are
So,
the boss. Like, come on.
and so they
So
buy 8 players
in January, just
and
after
they add
signing
to
in the
the
summer,
team. Yeah, I'll say that, yeah, buy them, but like I don't know, are they playing for me? Maybe buy them, but keep them
and ship them
somewhere.
on loan. Yeah,
Yeah, or something like that. Like find loan agreements. Like I'm not training with them. Like the people I want to train with are this, and like putting
yeah,
Enzo Fernandez, like bringing him from Benfica, especially after that protracted transfer, and putting
yeah.
him in the next day. Like
Spotlight.
it was
Yeah, yeah.
that's crazy.
I mean, um, I hope that someday Ten Hag will also speak out about how things went for him at Manchester United. And this is not me taking a dig at him. This is me really wanting to understand what happened to him, because on a very serious note, he was one of the brightest managers 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago in the
Mm.
world. Real Madrid was tapping him. There were a lot of big clubs who wanted to go for him. He's enjoyed the same shine Amorim is enjoying today. Manchester United took a shine. He enjoyed the same shine Graham Potter was enjoying then, really. And I think you look at it and you look back and you realize that not every manager has the capacity to survive within those structureless situations. And people would say Ten Hag was the sacrificial lamb for the era that Amorim is coming to enjoy. Similarly, people would say that Potter and all the coaches that came after him were sacrificial lambs for the era that Maresca is coming to enjoy. That's fine, but we didn't ask them to be sacrificial lambs. They could have opted out of those projects. They didn't. So they, at least, for one thing I know, they didn't enter with the intention of becoming sacrificial lambs. They entered with the intention of becoming the saviors of the day, and it didn't
Yeah.
work out. So yeah, those ones are just those things. But I think it was a brilliant interview in the end. I enjoyed listening to him. I enjoyed his speech. I think he should probably become a podcaster. Really, doesn't mean he should abandon his coaching job, but yeah, would get to learn some really cool stuff from him. This has been a really nice episode of the Beer Parlor. But you've really done well wearing your Chelsea jersey throughout the episode. Congratulations. I thought midway you'd say I should hold on, you are
You want me
coming,
to
and then
take off
then change
my
or
top mid
something.
episode?
What?
You want me to take off my top mid episode and show my biceps and my
Oh
packs?
no, I thought you'd maybe pause and say, Charlie, give me a second. I'm showing Chelsea too much. I just want to play safe. I'm going to put on some Tottenham jersey or something. But Charlie, you decided to stick with Chelsea, so no wahala.
Yeah,
But yeah,
top
thanks
four.
for joining the episode. Oh, now you are claiming top four. Say it again. Say it
Okay.
again. Let's hear it.
Like, of course, our aim from the start of the season is to play in Europe. So,
Say it again. Say it again. Not title race.
no,
Not
not
top
tight.
four. Oh,
Like top four to play in Europe. Yeah,
such
to play in the
mediocre.
Champions.
Charlie. Such knock Liverpool off their pitch. Knock them off. Oh, what is this? I'm
All
inciting violence. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining in on this episode. Leave your thoughts, leave your comments. Let us know what you think about Ruben Amorim's start to life at Manchester United, about Pep Guardiola's crisis, about the appointment of Ruud van Nistelrooy for Leicester City, and also really about Graham Potter's analysis or insights as to how things were during his time at Chelsea. That being said, see you on another episode of the Beer Parlor. Thanks for joining in. Bye, guys.